The cerebral severity of the anti-fashion movement was a response to the carefree abandon of the golden 80s, a time when designers could be entirely driven by their creativity. But world commodification was to catch up with fashion.
Okay, Mr. Lagerfeld, your collection was a big sensation.
1 second.
You're just going to have to lower your voices a little bit. Excuse me, Franz, you're going to have to talk a little bit softer.
The air of the time, I mean, what's in the air, difficult to say. There are millions of different things. You know, I'm like an antenna on a building, capturing everything what's in the air and then trying to make it image like TV, you see.
At the dawn of the 21st century, the term luxury replaced the word fashion with increasing frequency. The major groups had become the new players in the industry, and they aimed to sell not just clothes, but also bags, shoes, perfume, lipstick, or any other product stamped with a logo. In a now global market, brands were obliged to produce strong images that would inspire people to buy, as far afield as China and Russia. These developments, which started in the 1980s, continued to pick up speed in the new millennium. So where did the designers fit into this increasingly brutal system? The best armed among them were those who managed to step beyond the status designers formerly enjoyed to become masters of the media. From now on, their audience was the whole world.
You're very much in the public eye. Why have you gone for such high visibility? Discretion is all very well, but it's only one way of being. I didn't choose one stance in particular to get seen. I do happen to be visible, but it's not my fault. I really don't want to have too many things in my name because I'm a mercenary.
Who do you work for?
For nearly 20 different businesses, I've designed a collection of expensive dresses, a collection of inexpensive dresses, jumpers, and bathing suits. But I never do the same design twice. The industry keeps you young because you have to keep changing.
So you're not afraid of the rising younger generation?
Well, I'm already one step ahead of them, if only in terms of industry experience and technique. And as I'm not entrenched in the style of any one particular era or stuck on one particular style thinking only that style is worth something, I don't have that problem. I'm quite opportunistic to the point of grabbing things out of the air or from other people's minds that they themselves can't even express because they don't have the capacity of technique. When I took over Chanel, they said, "It's over, it's done for." The owner said to me, "Listen, I've just acquired the fashion house. The way it is right now, I'm not proud of it. If you can do something with it, good. If not, I'll sell it." Well, I did something with it.
Gabrielle Chanel died in 1971, and Karl arrived at Chanel over 10 years later. We'd had plenty of time to mourn her absence, and he was the right person at the right time to step into it.
It's amusing to design with a predetermined style, and that's what attracted me to the Chanel adventure. It's my proposition, the Chanel image. It's not exactly like theater, but it is playing with given themes. So I modified the skirt a little because fashions change. I gave the style big shoulders because every fashion has to follow some sort of fashion, even if the Chanel style is not subject to seasonal change, but it still has to have an up-to-date element to it.
Karl launched a new image, which had not existed before, the stylist. He arrived at a dying fashion house, shook it up, and turned it into a golden goose.
With Karl Lagerfeld, one image replaces another. An autocratic director, he replaced Inès de la Fressange, the face of Chanel for the 1980s, by Claudia Schiffer for the 1990s. With an insatiable appetite for everything and then its opposite, he took possession of the house conventions in order to shake them up, revamp them, and transgress them. Touching on the trends of the moment with humor, Karl Lagerfeld increasingly expanded Chanel's territory. And as the new century was ushered in, he turned the House of Chanel into a heavyweight of global luxury.
Karl took all the conventions of an old fashion house and he infused them with pop colours, made them giant or minuscule, and made a monumental success of them. From that point on, Karl's little children were born, in the form of all the people that took over dead fashion houses. That's the decade of what Karl invented.
Alongside the fashion designer model that Karl Lagerfeld embodied, appeared another major fashion player, the luxury group CEO. Up until now, designers had relied on financiers to launch their fashion houses. Now, the major CEOs took control and changed house designers. This is Bernard Arnault. Having made his fortune in real estate, he was quick to understand that French luxury had vast commercial potential. He decided to build a group from scratch. He was particularly interested in one newcomer that was making waves at Patou, Christian Lacroix.
In December 1986, friends of friends mentioned Mr. Arnault to me, whom I didn't know at all, so I had lunch with him just to make his acquaintance.
He took a 5 billion-old franc gamble on Lacroix alone. 5 billion francs to be made profitable in 3 years' time.
A talent needs to arrive at the right time. And Lacroix's baroque, flamboyant couture had great appeal.
Quite frankly, I always approached couture in the way I approach the work I do today, as a costume designer. A very special dress for a very special occasion is exactly like designing for a heroine. And that either appealed or didn't appeal at all to people, the theatrical, operatic style of what I did.
There was a time when excess was exciting. It was bling-bling before its time. You never saw jewelry as big as the pieces Lacroix made. You never saw so much embroidery, lace and brocades. It was a return to couture, hats, jewelry, the affected side of things. Very styled hair, in chignons, lots of makeup, the spirit of French couture, and it had great appeal. It was a very American type of success. It was the Americans that wore Lacroix.
We might only see the profits in 5 years' time or even longer. What we're creating with Christian is built to last.
But Bernard Arnault's appetite did not stop there. With a healthy appetite for major luxury names, he took over the Dior and Givenchy haute couture houses. He then treated himself to a legend of French tradition, the outstanding luggage maker Louis Vuitton.
The monogrammed canvas was the group's cash cow, so to speak. Mass diffusion of the Vuitton label sent out a shockwave, and it really changed the profession.
Banking on the legend of French prestige for every acquisition he made, he accumulated jewelry and perfume houses. And to wash it all down, he acquired the best champagnes, Moet and Chandon, Ruinart, and Dom Pérignon. At the dawn of the 1990s, the LVMH war machine was launched. But in the meantime, in Milan, family brands that were running out of steam but that had a worldwide reputation for their luxury leather goods, like Gucci, Fendi, and Prada, found a new youth. The first house to get a dusting down was Prada. In 1985, Miuccia Prada, the founder's granddaughter, invented the concept of the It bag, a bag made not out of leather but nylon. It was phenomenally successful. On the base of the success, the company duo, Miuccia Prada for the design and her husband Patrizio Bertelli for the business side of things, launched into the ready-to-wear market.
To mix the tradition with the avant-garde, let's say. In some way we do simple things, so the fabrics for me are very important, and the technique, how they are done. Beautiful shops around the world. This very modern concept, very empty space, but with a very rich atmosphere.
The whole world stood to attention before this minimalist luxury. First, on the main ready-to-wear line based on an austere style inspired by military dress. Then on another line, Miu Miu, which was cheekier and more relaxed. Miuccia Prada's status as the empress of Italian luxury meant she could even get away with a few features that bordered on bad taste, like 70s wallpaper prints and wrinkled socks with heels, which were not to everyone's liking, but which had many followers all the same. But Milan provided the fashion world with its biggest surprise with the spectacular resurrection of the Gucci fashion house, which was on the brink of bankruptcy at the time. When Gucci hit an all-time low, its creative director entrusted women's ready-to-wear to a young unknown designer from Texas who was not even allowed to take a bow at the end of the show. Season after season, manager D'Amico De Soli entrusted him with increasing responsibility. In 1994, all of Gucci's lines were signed by the new creative director, Tom Ford.
I think he managed to translate the glamour of the moment.
He managed to make women very sexy. There was not one fashion editor who didn't want to look like the models on the runway, with their buttons undone down to their navels. And their flares couldn't get any lower-waisted. The zip can't have been more than 2 centimeters long. He relaunched handbags just like that. It was one of the first fashion shows to feature handbags.
They were always very controlled messages, very direct, repeating the same things 20 times over until it stuck into your head. Just the one very precise message. It was just like an advertising campaign.
You have to have, as a fashion designer, a vision. You have to have something to say. What are you saying?
And Tom Ford's vision for the old Italian house that no longer did it for people was ultra simple. Gucci equals sex.
For me, fashion is a commercial endeavor. It is artistic, and there is art for me in it, but I'm not someone who has always approached fashion as my art.
With his American-style pragmatism, Tom Ford imposed a new figure on the industry, the creative director. A creative director who despotically controlled the entire house's image.
Marketing is the final layer of design. It's what reaches out to the audience and entices them to get you into the store.
The world over, Gucci customers were served by the same style assistant clad in black and standing to attention with the same cream carpet on the floor and the same flower arrangement. Everything had been put into place. All Tom Ford needed to do was to hammer out his message relentlessly and stick to it season after season.
Ultra slinky and undeniably hot. He brought back the logo and made it chic. He makes clothes that rock the world, and he puts sex back where it belongs. Here's Tom Ford for Gucci.
The incredible success of Porno Chic made Gucci Group's share